My name is Frank Principi, for those I've not met. I am your elected representative on the Prince William Board of County Supervisors and your host for this evening. What a great turnout and a great facility with a great cause. I want to thank everybody on behalf of the board for being out here tonight and participating in this planning process. North Woodbridge is at the confluence of the Potomac and Occoquan rivers, right? It's at Route 1, 123, and Interstate 95. If there's going to be a place for high-density, mixed-use, transit-oriented development, I have said now for a decade that North Woodbridge is it. The other amenities that we have in this area, in the expanded North Woodbridge area, includes a beautifully planned community in Belmont Bay. Not one but two restaurants, not one but two marinas. We now have a George Mason University campus there at Belmont Bay. If you've not been there, please go and visit. We've got some new luxury housing with Rivergate Towers now going up, and we have a lot to be proud of. Today, not 10 years from now, not 20 years from now, today, your local government is investing $500 million. That's B with a billion, okay? $500 million in road improvements, widening Route 1 and 123 and several other roads in the area. We're also undergrounding all of our utilities, not just in North Woodbridge, but for the entire 7-8 mile length of the widening project as well. And we are demolishing blighted buildings. In fact, we're up to over 60 now, 60 blighted buildings have been demolished. A few of them have been renovated, but for the most part demolished, and there are more to be demolished with the final construction project that is going to start this spring. We are here at the table. We are wanting to work with all of you as stakeholders in our community to do what? Well, to, quite frankly, to remake Woodbridge. And I call it New Woodbridge. New Woodbridge stands on a three-legged stool. The first leg is really about making the right planning choices as a community. And what I believe the right planning choices are is mixed-use transit-oriented development. Not everywhere, but in most cases, certainly North Woodbridge is one of the 5 mixed-use town center areas that we would like to see in eastern Prince William. And quite frankly, perhaps the only urbanized, or certainly the first urbanized area of eastern Prince William is right here in the North Woodbridge area. The second pillar is really about mobility, right? How many of us sat in traffic getting here today, right, tonight, right? That is a constant, and we need to do a better job of mixed use or multimodal transportation solutions for everyone, right? So we are talking about a $4 billion high-speed rail line coming through Woodbridge that will serve intercity passengers between Richmond and Washington, D.C. That will go right through the Woodbridge VRE station as it's currently planned. $4 billion, and quite frankly, we are working real hard on the first $750 million to make that happen and funding for that. Fast Ferry, one of my favorite subjects. I think we're getting real close on Fast Ferry out of the Occoquan and or Belmont Bay communities as another transit solution. PRTC is being remade. PRTC, everybody heretofore is probably thinking PRTC as a bus company or a bus agency. And quite frankly, this the end of last year, we just launched a new strategic plan that will make PRTC the transit solution provider in this region, not just Prince William, but also Stafford and Spotsylvania counties, with bike share and car share, with contracts with Uber and Lyft for first mile and last mile, with employer shuttles, So we've got a lot of planning. We've done a lot of planning. We are trying to bring those planning ideas to the table tonight for North Woodbridge. And the third pillar of the vision is really about the neighborhoods. Right? When I took office 10 years ago, we had one of the top 10 worst home foreclosure markets in the country. And when I drove down my neighborhood, there were empty houses, there were empty cul-de-sacs, there were streets without anybody living at them. And of course that has turned around. But we have a legacy that we need to ensure does not exist again, and that's the tall grass, the broken windows, the graffiti, making sure that our schools are right-sized for the neighborhoods that they serve, our library and other sort of government amenities that are provided. So my ask of you tonight, and I hope to see all of you tomorrow night as well, for having more fun tomorrow night. My ask to all of you is to roll up your sleeves, work together to come up with the ideal North Woodbridge for the new Woodbridge vision, and help us make this a reality. Help us return to North Woodbridge being a center of commerce at a transportation crossroads. So thank you all for joining us. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Director of the Planning Department for Prince William County, Ms. Rebecca Horn. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Horner with the Planning Office. I have to apologize in advance because my presentation will not be as great as Supervisor Principi, but and he did cover some of the things that I was going to talk about. But I just wanted to start off by thanking Supervisor Principi for his support. He's been very supportive of this effort, and without his support, we wouldn't be here today because we're in the middle of this process. So he has really given us a lot of support, and he also provided the food for you today and tomorrow. I wanted to introduce the staff that are going to be helping you at your tables today. Could you please stand? So this is Connie and Seth, who is our Parks Director, David, Ryan, Jasmine, and Ryan Oma. I've got Ben Ziskel with our department, Ryan Foster. We have several Ryans here tonight. Justin is in the back. Luann is our county architect. So these are your facilitators at your tables. And we also have transportation, Rick Canizales. We also have Tom with economic development. And I don't know did I miss anybody? I don't think so. So we've got several different departments represented here tonight to help answer questions and actually just participate. And we also have several agencies. VDOT is here with us as well. And then the housekeeping items, the restrooms here and out there. And like Supervisor Principi said, we don't have scheduled breaks for tonight or tomorrow. So please, if you feel like you need to take a break, just excuse yourself, pick up some snacks, and feel free to take that break whenever you need it. I wanted to give a brief presentation because there are some people here who may not have ever participated in a process like this, and I just want to give a brief explanation. Why are we here? We have a comprehensive plan in the county, and this is our vision for what we want our community to be. It's a 20-year long-term vision. It lays out the goals and objectives. It says what the level of services that the community expects and desires. And essentially, it's our guide for development, for revitalization, for redevelopment. It also tells us what capital facilities we need to plan for. And it also incorporates population, existing population, projected population. So we know that we are planning for the necessary facilities for the level of service, how many parks or schools or how many officers that we have to respond to emergencies, because we have an expectation that we want an officer to be there in 4 minutes. So the guide, our vision, our guide to explain all of that is our comprehensive plan. And I have an excerpt here which shows you the overall comprehensive land use plan, how we expect the growth in North Woodbridge in our existing plan. Because the ultimate goal is that we want to help develop and create a vibrant, high quality community. We update our comprehensive plan about once every 10 years. We do this because we get new population information about every 10 years. It gives us what is our existing population, how much has it changed in the last 10 years, and then what is the expected growth projection. It allows us to incorporate the uses and needs that we expect to have in the next 10 years. Now the board initiated a comprehensive plan update and asked us to do a number of updates, which includes incorporating that population information, chapter updates so we can look at whether or not that level of service that we decided 10 years ago is still applicable, whether or not we need to upgrade it. Maybe we need a little better level of service. We decided we want some more parks. And it also included an update for several small area plans. It also allows us to consider changes in technology and growth strategies and patterns that different communities may be using so that we can incorporate those into our own vision. So what is a small area plan? A small area plan is, because the county is 350 square miles, it's difficult to get into a lot of detail in our plan in one specific area. So the county has identified sector plans currently, and they are the areas of the county that we want to encourage growth, the areas that we believe growth should be directed to because we have existing infrastructure and amenities to serve additional population. So it's a detailed area for a specific area of the county. It includes specific goals and objectives that are relevant for that specific area. And it also sometimes includes design standards on what we want development to look like. We being everybody in this room, the community, the agencies, the elected officials. So we work together to look at a specific goal for that area. So what's the difference between a small area plan and a sector plan? Like I mentioned, our current plan has a sector plan for North Woodbridge. The difference is really just a title, with the exception that our existing sector plans currently don't include infrastructure needs plans or a link to the CIP, and they also don't include implementation strategies. So we plan to incorporate those two elements into our small area plans that we are doing in the next year to year and a half. So like I said, one of the small area plans that was initiated by the board is North Woodbridge. So as Supervisor Principi mentioned, we have a lot of plans in North Woodbridge. And I just wanted, so everybody is working from the same base of knowledge, to briefly talk about what are those plans. So the POTOMAC Communities Revitalization Plan was implemented in 2003. And it was updated in 2010. So it's about 10 years. It's a good time that we look at it again to incorporate those population projections and any new ideas, like any other changes that we want to include if we think of them tonight, or there are other studies that have been done that are not formally adopted into that. One of those is New Woodbridge. New Woodbridge, as Supervisor Principi mentioned, he introduced in 2008. And it includes elements of smarter growth, better transportation, better neighborhoods, and higher quality of life, and for the county to be strategic in the ways that it achieves those goals. So, like I said, that plan has not been formally adopted into the North Woodbridge sector plan, so this is an opportunity for us to incorporate those elements formally into this small area plan. One of the recommendations of the revitalization plan, the sector plan, was to develop design guidelines for POTOMAC communities, which is the entire Route 1 corridor, and those were developed in 2014. So that was relatively recent. That identified the visual preferences of the community for this area, and this is an opportunity, it's actually part of the scope of work of the comprehensive plan update, to incorporate the elements of the POTOMAC community's design guidelines into the North Woodbridge small area plan. And lastly, the board in 2016 adopted a new strategic plan, so this is another opportunity for us to incorporate those ideas directly into the small area plan so that we can achieve a coordinated effort of these plans. It's a way to synthesize and coordinate these plans. So I pulled some aerial imagery because I thought it was very interesting. The image on the left is from 1937. So this is what North Woodbridge looked like in 1937. And on the right is today. So as you can see, there are a lot of amazing assets. As Supervisor Principi mentioned, you have a lot of transportation assets in the area. And so this is an opportunity to build on those assets and into a clear and comprehensive plan with that implementation strategy to achieve the vision. So it's interesting to identify these assets, and as was mentioned, the ferry study. So these are ideas that we can incorporate into the plan. And as Supervisor Principi mentioned, the three-legged stool, the assets of mobility, 95, the VRE, the commuter ferry, the commuter parking lots that we have, the hot lanes, the bus rapid transit line that is planned to go through Route 1 all the way to the Potomac Mill. And then also well-established neighborhoods that we can continue to stabilize and revitalize and preserve into the future. So all of this puts North Woodbridge in a fantastic position to achieve smart growth and to establish and maintain a high quality of life for its residents. I wanted to talk just briefly about the process. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of the process. Staff has been working with stakeholders, both internal and external, to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Those have been incorporated into the documents on your tables so that when we break out into an exercise, you're going to talk about what has been done so far, what's been identified so far, so that we can build off of that in this next 2 days. So we will be working together to identify goals and objectives and action strategies to develop these conceptual land use plans. You all have, I believe you all have a copy of the agenda with you, so that explains the general flow. You will be working in these small groups. Each table has a number on it. We have 5 specific tables, so if you're not at one of the number tables, we'll need to get you redirected to one of those, because these are where our facilitators are located, and you'll remain in these teams both nights. So take note of what table number you're at so you can come back to that table number, because you will be working as a team to develop a recommended plan. And tomorrow, so you'll be working in small group most of the time, but tomorrow evening, in the last half of the evening, you will be reporting out your plan that you've developed, and then we'll be working together to synthesize those plans to identify where there's consensus, which can help inform staff to come up with a recommended plan. We will present that at a Planning Commission work session, which has not been scheduled yet, but will be probably about 2 months after this. It's going to take us that long to do this work, to put it together in a plan. So we will notify you if you've given us your email and contact information. We'll update you when that's been scheduled. And there's also an e-notification. You can sign up for e-notifications on the planning or on the county's website. E-notifications for comprehensive plan updates. If you sign up for that, we have been giving updates through that e-notification process. It'll send an email to your email and let you know what the next step is. And then we have project web pages for every single project that we're working on right now. If you get into the planning department's website, you can go to planning in progress and then go into the comprehensive plan update and then drill down into the small area plans. But I think you've got some direct links onto your agendas that will get you there. And there's also a comment form. So if you think of something after this 2 days and you want to make a comment, you can go into that webpage and send us an email with your comment. And Ryan Foster is the project manager for this project. So you've got his contact information. So if you prefer to call him or email him, by all means, he'll take your comments and make sure that they get included into the plans. I wanted to just very briefly go through some of the images from the design guidelines that were adopted in 2014, just so that we're working from a baseline. Each one of the tables has the full copy of this packet so that you can look at it more closely. Since we just developed these in 2014, we are not going to revisit the visual preferences. But as you can see, the visual preferences are compact, walkable, high-density development, taking advantage of those assets. And if you have any strong feelings one way or the other by what you see in the design guidelines, let your facilitator know. They'll take note of it. And I just wanted to say one thing about the density so that we understand We've got a lot of transit options in North Woodbridge. It's one of the things that I think makes North Woodbridge most exciting an area to work in. You've got the future bus rapid transit, the ferry, the VRE station, high-speed rail, commuter parking lots, PRTC, the bus. We also have OmniLink, which will take you directly to a metro station. I think it's Springfield Metro Station. But there are residential densities that are necessary to support these transit. And I just wanted to talk about that very briefly. When we're talking about the number of dwelling units that you need to have in an area per acre, that's how we as planners describe densities for residential. You need relatively high density residential in order to support these transit options and to expand their services. One thing that we hope is that we eventually have a two-way VRE service. Well, we need residential densities and office development in order to support those densities and to expand those services. So think about that while you're working in your small groups. And then the last thing I wanted to say was to give you an update, a brief update on population projections. So I'm going to leave this up here. We'll come back to it and leave it up here. But the existing population in 2015 in North Woodbridge was almost 9,000 people. And based on the projections, the growth projections, the difference between what we have planned for this area and what is projected to be here is about 2,500 people. So that tells us that the growth projections exceed what we currently have in our plan. So we need to think about, we want to plan for additional residential capacity so that we can accommodate that growth. And in terms of non-residential employees, North Woodbridge currently has about 2,500 employees, and what's projected is more than what we have planned by about 5,000. So that tells us that based on what the growth projections show us, we currently don't have the planning capacity in our long-range plan to support that growth projection. So that's something to think about when you're working in your group. Definitely, we have a demand for growth, a demand for a workforce in North Woodbridge, but our current comprehensive plan doesn't allow enough to accommodate those growth projections. So we're now going to break into the groups, and you'll work in small groups, and you're going to be reviewing some of the existing documents that I've mentioned so that you get a better familiarity with them, and then also the strengths and opportunities and threats and weaknesses that have been identified in the stakeholder groups that we've already had. I've asked Ryan Horner, he's been paying attention, he's going to go through, he's been paying attention closely to the commonalities between the plans so that he could go over where we have consensus between the plans, and I think that'll be a valuable discussion.
Ours is the best.
All right, well, we'll see if I was paying attention that closely. I tried to. There were some commonalities in the words we used. There were commonalities in the places that we pointed to on the maps. And I think that everyone, if we combine them all, we covered a lot of material tonight. And I say that because when we think about what it takes to put together a city, it's not just where we're going to have people be in houses. It's not just where we're going to put the new grocery store. It's not just where we're going to want to sit on a rooftop and watch the sunset or rise. It's about where do we put the infrastructure? Where do we put the schools? Where do we put the fire station? And it was great to hear that. I know our group looked at libraries. Other groups looked at police stations. Other groups looked at stormwater. Absolutely, stormwater retention and filtration is a huge part of what we have to do in the state of Virginia. So, or the Commonwealth of Virginia, excuse me. So when we consider all these things, I mean, I would like first of all to give a big round of applause to the planning staff for the hard work that they did tonight, and for the hard work that they have to do every day in pulling all these things together. They've got a mountain of work and many more months to go before they're complete. But I think for me, it gained an appreciation for what they do, and I think all of us sit around these tables realize that this isn't easy stuff. But I think what is really great about what happened tonight is that we saw some common themes, and that was the opportunity for high-density, mixed-use as a community center, as a town center, at the intersection of 123 and Route 1. I mean, that everybody kind of nailed that one. There were different ways to approach it. There was some that had more retail, some that kept some industrial there, but everybody felt residential was a good option. Everybody felt that a higher density there was good. What that does is it allows us to try to reach that additional 2,335 more people that we need to bring into this area, right? So that was good. A huge amenity, and we talked about it at our table, and everybody mentioned it, was what happens with the waterfront. Is it, what can be on that phase 2? What can we do right now? What can we improve in our parks? What can we do short term? But then what can we do long term? And long term means that development isn't all going to happen at once, but it's going to happen in spurts. And as it develops, we've laid the groundwork for it to be successful in some of the ideas that we've come up with. A couple other notes here I wanted to mention. Connections were big. Table 2, Ryan number 1, brought up that they looked very strongly at the edge of Route 1. We looked at that. I think everybody really saw that as a huge edge. It's a wall. It's a barrier between two very important parts of our community. And as we look to see how we can bridge those, we also look beyond our community. Lots of arrows going outside of this area to other areas, to across the river. We talked about to the Veterans Park, the Veterans Memorial, things that are either views, vistas, or they might be actual roadways that'll take us other places. We're not an isolated community. We want to bring people in so that they can enjoy what we have as well. So those connections were very important. Overall, I thought that there were kind of unique pieces that everybody had, but I think as we brought them all together, and as the planning department will do that over the next couple months, we're going to see a lot of these commonalities, and I think a lot of those check boxes will be met. So thank you all again.
I wanted to put the slide up here that that explains what our next steps are, and I wanted to say that we all really appreciate how amazingly engaged you were in this last 2 days. It's a lot to ask. 3 hours in the evening, 2 days in a row during a weeknight when we have very busy lives and other things that we could be or want to be or should be doing. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to Supervisor Principi for his support of the project and providing all of the refreshments for the last 2 days.
First off, let me just say thank you to everybody in this room that was here last night and tonight. Last night we had nearly 100 individuals. There's a lot of energy, a lot of passion, quite frankly, a lot of smarts, a lot of competency in these principles that we're trying to accomplish. The proof is in the pudding. In the next 60 days or so, we will see staff's rendition of the synthesis of these 5 plans.